So I covered the performance of the man of the match, Ahmad, in a previous video. If you want to check out that, I'll leave it linked in all the usual places. But we do have to come back to reality, so in this video I'm going to be breaking down the issues that we saw in the game against Southampton. And in this game, obviously, whilst Mainu and Agate did have poor games, I think there are 3 specific players who have struggled in prior games and who I think are bigger issues in the starting 11 going forward. But first of all, I do think Amorim has to take responsibility. If Ten Hag receives criticism for how he sets up the side, you have to be consistent, even if you still believe Amorim is the right man for the job going forward, which I definitely do. See, from watching that game, it was evident that we don't play through the centre of the pitch enough, particularly from build-up. When Onana has possession, there needs to be significantly more movement ahead of him to open up passing lanes. We should be having the midfield double pivot Agate and Mainu moving a lot closer to Onana in possession, looking to draw the opposition's midfield line higher up the pitch, and then use these bounce passes played from either Onana or the 2 wider centre-backs into the double pivot, out to the full-backs or back inside, to then look to find the 2 interior forwards between the lines. The issue for United is that there isn't enough movement to open up these passing lanes, or to create space in behind the opposition's midfield line, and there isn't enough intention with playing through the centre of the pitch either. And to me, this comes down to the overall coordination of the system, and something that Amorim has to work on the training ground. But beyond that, I think if you look at the personnel of the starting 11, I think there are 3 players who present issues. The first is obviously Højlund. I mean, if the guy was standing in the rain, he'd have a soggy head because he couldn't hold up an umbrella. There were countless times throughout this game, as well as previous games, where he played a direct pass into his feet, and pretty much every single time he gets caught flat-footed, and the centre-back is either able to jump in to make an interception, or apply pressure and the ball pretty much bounces off him. And even when he is able to receive possession, he just doesn't have the technical ability to get it under control and link play efficiently. At this point, the centre-forward position is becoming a liability, and we saw the difference in link-up quality when Xerxes came onto the pitch, as he was not only able to receive the ball to feet, but either turn with it and then play forward, or link play with the midfield line behind with his back to goal. With Højlund up front, we are unable to get our attacks out of the middle third, because his hold-up play is genuinely terrible, and this notion that we should just keep Højlund because Amorim can turn him into Gyökeres is just complete nonsense. It's just a fantasy land and not how football works. I mean, a genuine question, what about Højlund's game currently makes anyone think he'd be at Gyökeres' level in terms of his all-round game by 26, let alone in the next 1 or 2 seasons? I'm struggling to even see why Højlund's potential is regarded so highly, because surely if you think Højlund has the potential to be an elite level striker, which certainly is a valid opinion, and something that I had previously thought, do you not then also have to think that players like Liam Delap, Nicholas Jackson, Rodrigo Muniz and Evan Ferguson all have elite level potential as well? And realistically, I think all of those players have a far better skill set overall than Højlund. I mean, Højlund excels when he's racing in behind a high back line, or even when he receives the ball inside of the box and he's able to quickly work a shooting position, but his play outside of the box is just poor. And I've also been underwhelmed by his movement in the final third as well, with Bruno Fernandes' goal against Arsenal showcasing this perfectly. When people criticise my opinion that we should sell Højlund and replace him with Gyökeres, they seem to just assume that Højlund will reach Gyökeres' level, but there's no guarantee of that. Certainly no guarantee he gets to that level in the next 1 or 2 seasons, as his all-round game is so incomplete. And I would even argue that even with all these faults, Garnacho is closer to becoming an elite level player than Højlund is, and when Højlund plays as a centre forward as opposed to Xerxes, our attacks rarely even make it to the final third. Now don't get me wrong, Xerxes does have his own issues in the final third, as he just hasn't got the pace or the ability to work a shooting position around the box, or just the overall quality that I think we need, but he's a better option than Højlund, because with Xerxes in the side, at least our attacks are coordinated, and we can actually progress the ball into the final third. With Højlund, it's turnover after turnover. His only value is when he's running in behind the back line, and when he occasionally gets a clear-cut opportunity inside of the box. The second player who has been an issue prior to this game, with the game against Nottingham Forest and even the League Cup game against Tottenham coming to mind, is Leny Yoro. I mean, good grief, Suleimana was crucifying him down Southampton's left side time and time again, and this is exactly my criticism of this ridiculous transfer strategy that so many of the fan base have been banging on about. We need to sign young players with potential, not ready-made players. We've already tried that. Yes, and this is the result. Leny Yoro without doubt could be an elite level centre-back, but the reality is there's a massive gap between current and potential ability. And purely on current ability, I don't think Yoro is a top half Premier League centre-back. Yes, he could be one of the best centre-backs in the world, but he's still only a teenager. And given that centre-backs usually develop later on in their careers, that could literally take half a decade or more. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not against signing a promising young centre-back like Euro, but if we're paying £50 million for them, we might as well just spend that money on the finished product. For example, we could have got Orejo in the summer for that price, and whilst he has been injury prone this season, Euro also missed 3 months at the start of the season as well. We've spent over £110 million on Euro and Højlund, two players who maybe in the future, if they undergo the right development, could be elite level players, with a huge maybe next to Højlund's name. For that money, however, we could just go and buy the elite level players now. Yes, in theory, signing these hyped up young players for huge fees looks great when you put them in a starting 11 on X and glaze over how great our side could be in 2028, but in reality, you end up with hugely inconsistent performances like we've seen from both Højlund and Euro this season. If you are signing young players with potential, it has to be for fees under £30–35 million. Over £50 million, just get the finished product. And the third player who I see being an issue in the starting lineup, and was pretty poor for at least the first 60 minutes anyway, was Alejandro Garnacho. Now I do have a bit more leniency with him because we didn't sign him for in excess of £50 million, and instead came through the academy, and so I think you can afford to be a bit more patient with these type of players because we haven't invested anything in signing him. I think he definitely has more quality than Højlund, and he showed that in the second half, but at the moment anyway, he certainly isn't a starting level player for Manchester United, but off the bench he can be a very good impact player. The issue is we've exiled pretty much any player with any high level quality except for Ahmad, which we would have done if Ten Hag had stayed, to the point that we can't even afford to sign elite level quality without selling the players we currently have. I'd much rather see Højlund leave before Garnacho, but realistically, if we could get upwards of £50 million for Garnacho, there are ready-made elite level players on the market such as Cunha or Mbeumo that we could bring in, and because of PSR and FFP issues, I do think we have to at least consider selling Garnacho. I mean, we aren't Brighton or Brentford, we can't live off potential, otherwise we'll stay mid-table, we won't be able to attract elite level players anymore, and we might not be in the Champions League for the rest of the decade, let alone winning the title. Now those three players for me are the clear weak links just because current ability and potential, there's too much of a gap there, but I also thought there were issues with De Ligt, Agate, Mainu and Mazraoui. And to be fair, it was mainly because Mazraoui is playing as a left wing back. With De Ligt, Amorim has to switch up the build-up setup. De Ligt offers next to nothing when he's pushing up to the edge of the box because he doesn't have the awareness to be able to adjust his positioning and open up passing lanes, nor does he have the press resistance to be able to drop a shoulder and swivel out of pressure. And even when he is able to receive the ball facing goal, he doesn't have the vision or the technique to thread those incisive passes to play through the press. I think Amorim has to adjust the player's positioning in the build-up shape. I would suggest pushing Ahmad further forward, pulling Mazraoui wide, having De Ligt or even Maguire, whoever starts as a central centre-back, having a starting position in the back three alongside Onana and Martinez, and then having Bruno Fernandes dropping deeper into the defensive third, as at least this way you have De Ligt receiving the ball facing goal, rather than with his back to goal on the edge of the box, where he's far better at playing the forward pass between the lines than he is receiving the ball with his back to goal. And Bruno Fernandes is far better receiving the ball under pressure in these deeper areas and using his composure, vision and technique to play short passes around the pressure or find a forward pass in behind the opposition's midfield line, with Mazraoui also being far more comfortable bombing forward down the right channel and receiving lofted passes into his chest compared to when he's receiving the ball inside of the box and having to play those midfield splitting passes. And also Ahmad is far better when he's dropping deep from that right sided half space to either receive the ball to feet or spinning in behind the fullback and using his pace to drive into the space created higher up on the flank, compared to when he's receiving the ball on a deeper position on the same flank. It seems like a simple adjustment to me, I just don't know why we haven't seen Ruben Amorim do it already. So thank you for watching. If you want to check out the Patreon and the Instagram group chat, I'll leave that linked in all the usual places.